let's talk about toolkits. This is the toolkit that comes with us when we go traveling. There's some changes sometimes, but let's talk about it. Usually our toolkit comes configured somewhat like this. Something like this. Yes. That is a Krieger US 10 bag. It's waterproof and it's pretty durable. Let me show you what's inside. In the pocket we have some work gloves. We have the GS 911 Wi-Fi, and we have some oil that I use for the chain. In the bag there's actually three main things. There's the toolkit, there's the front and rear inner tubes. Now these are a bit misgiven because these are the heavy duty ones. So the ones that we normally take with us are not this heavy duty. And then we have the third part, which is our motor compressor. This is a very small air compressor that we use to inflate the tires. We also have a very cheap Halford's air pressure gauge. The main attraction for today is not the tubes, not the compressor, but the toolkit. So let's get rid of the other ones. This is a typical configuration of our toolkit. This is what we have normally with us. First, to cover everything up, there's a few rags. You never know when you're going to need the rags. But let's have a look at what we got in here. First, over here we have two tire levers. These are quite short, but they're very sturdy, and they do get the tires off the rim. So then we have a very nice and expensive tool. This is very light, and it has got the rear axle nut tool here and then a tire lever on the other end. There's an insert here that allows us to use this tool on the front axle. There's also some gaffer tape wrapped around it. Never know when you're going to need that. And there's two rim protectors here. There's the 12mm spanner. There's a huge bunch of zip ties. And there's a lot of other spanners. There's the 3/4 inch extension bar. Sorry, 1/4 inch extension bar. The 3/4 inch ratchet with a socket stored on it, 1/4 inch ratchet drive, another tool stored there, some sockets, more sockets and adapters, a homemade bead buddy to hold the bead in place if you are taking the tire or putting the tire on yourself, some more sockets and bits, some more spanners, a adjustable spanner, and then in here we have a Rima Tip Top puncture repair kit. We've got some rubber gloves. We have a valve core puller. What you do with this one is you thread it through the hole in the rim and you thread it onto the valve core, and that way you can pull the valve stem through the hole in the rim. It's also got a valve extraction tool. Furthermore, there is some Scott oiler tips. This is the little tip that goes against the rear sprocket, so make sure that the oil drips in the right spot. They can easily get damaged if you are taking the wheel on and off, so carrying a spare one is a good thing. A bit of tire lube in here. I think it's the socket for the spark plugs, an adapter, another socket, a valve angle thing. Now these are good if you are limited to having air compressor handles that have a long metal stem on it. If you have one of them, then you can't easily get to the valves on a motorbike, because the valves on a motorbike stick straight up, and usually you have stuff like the brake discs in between. You can mount this onto the valve on the bike, and then you can use any tool to fill the tire with air. I've got a dinky little electrical testing tool. It's cost very little, and I don't know if it actually works, but it is probably better than nothing. It works really weirdly, but somehow it does seem to work. This is probably a superfluous tool, but I do know that from time to time you might need Allen keys, and this is the only Allen keys that we carry, because our bikes do not have any Allen keys. We have two fuses for our socket that powers the compressor. The compressor draws more power than the CAN bus system allows us to extract from the bike, so we have a special socket. We also have a valve cover and a valve stem nut, and in here we not only have the repair kit, but also a spare valve core. We also have some paper clips. Now these are very good if you need to short some sort of connector on the bike. And this might sound like a weird thing, but for example, the side stand switch can break, and if it breaks, your bike won't start when you the engine won't run if you put a gear in. If you use a paper clip, then you can short two of the connectors in the plug, and you can fool the computer to think that the side stand is up, and therefore you can continue your journey. Now let's have a look at some of the major components of our actual toolkit. The two things that are the two crucial bits of our toolkit is the ratchet handles. We opted to have quality tools with us when we were out there. These are very elaborate, quite expensive, but they are extremely good quality. Not only does this one work as a screwdriver like this, it also works as a ratchet when you turn it round. It's easiest to illustrate with the handle on. If you pull the green thing, you can put it in several angles. So we have a combined ratchet screwdriver and ratchet socket handle here. We've opted for two sizes for two reasons. First one is that the small one is very handy for taking off panels and things like that. The big one is the one that does the rest of the work. Any big fasteners on the bike, such as fork clamps or brake calipers, will be taken off using this one. So they both have the extension. Then we have various sockets, and they are primarily Torx or standard 6 or 12-sided sockets. We have a set of spanners, and the spanner situation is a little bit annoying because primarily our mirrors and our sprockets. My bike has got different size mirror nuts to the one that Kaz has got, so there's a bit of an issue there. This means that we need open-ended spanners, and we can't use sockets, and we can't use ring spanners. So we have to have a bunch of spanners with you. Now the spanners are annoying because they are big and they are heavy, and they can't really be reused as other tools. A spanner, this is what we call a spanner here on the correct side of the planet. I think you call it a wrench over in colonies. In an effort to reduce the number of spanners that we need, we have this Nipex adjustable spanner, and you might think that it is a standard head rounding tool, but it's actually quite good. It adjusts quite a lot, but the jaws are parallel, and you get, thanks to the lever effect here, you get a lot of power when using this. So for example, we only have one 13mm spanner open-ended, and we need two to adjust the chains, so we can use this one as the second one. I told you about the spanner problem just a little while ago, so we're still looking to reduce the number of actual spanners that we carry. But this is another tool. We might get one more of these, and then we can eliminate a bunch of other spanners. We don't know yet. There's a few things that is missing from our toolkit, and we are quite aware of this. However, it depends on where we're going and what we're doing, and various other things. So here's a few things that we might take with us depending on where we're going. My bike has got the rear sprocket that has got 16mm heads on. That means that I would have to carry 16mm spanner and socket if we were going somewhere where I might need to take the sprocket off. If we go somewhere where we might need to take the wheel bearings out, we need a circlip plier. Now this is the one I have for my garage. This is not something that we usually take with us. This is a very good one. However, it's very big. Our bikes have got 6,000 miles or 10,000 kilometer service intervals, so we don't usually need to change the oil. If we do need to change the oil, our bikes has got some plug that's the same size as the rear wheel nut, which is nice, except for that this spanner does not fit onto the sump plug. You need a socket for it. So if I need to drain the oil of the bike, I will need to take a socket for that. If I need to change the oil filter, I'll need the oil filter tool. But that would mean that my journey needs to be longer than 6,000 miles, because I would change the oil before I went. Again, if we would go for a very, very long ride, we would also need the feeler gauges for checking the valve clearances. Just as a precaution when we're going, this punch might be very useful. Now this is just standard 4mm punch. It is useful in two scenarios. The first one is quite common, and that is when you take the brake pads out. You need something to put into the hole in the brake caliper to punch the pads out. This is the perfect size. And another time when it is pretty much absolutely crucial, I've tried with drills and it doesn't work, is when you need to take the headstock bearings off. I actually had to buy this one in Belarus, in Minsk, because my headstock bearings went when I was on that trip. Then we have some sundries. WD-40 is always good to keep with you. So this one is a very common candidate to come with us. It is also good for changing tires. Use it as a tire lube to get your tires on and off the bike. For any sort of maintenance, a bit of copper slip is always good to have when you're dealing with high temperature nuts and bolts, or basically any nuts and bolts. Another good thing is thread lock, and also a little bit of bearing grease. Never bad to have with you. That's pretty much the additional things to the stuff that we have in the toolkit that we might bring with us if we go somewhere. In our case, this toolkit weighs 2.7 kilos. 2.7 kilos is quite a lot. I would prefer if it was lighter. In fact, I would very much prefer it if it would be lighter. So I'm going to try to make it lighter. But for what this toolkit does, I think it's quite remarkable. At under 3 kilos, we can basically service the whole bike apart from a few things. When it comes to making your own toolkit, you need to set out a strategy of what you want from it. You can't have everything with you, and you shouldn't have everything with you, because some of it just doesn't make sense. The bang for the buck is just too low. So, if you're going out for a trail ride, you're not going to need to change the oil filter. You're not going to need to adjust the valves. However, you might need tools to take the spark plugs out if you've drowned the bike, to open up the airbox, maybe even to change the oil if you've drowned the bike and have new oil with you. You would probably be very wise to take with you tools to take the tires off and change an inner tube or repair a puncture. If we were to go on a long ride, such as around the world, we have a choice to make. We can try to service our bikes ourselves, or we can try to find places where they will be serviced. Our option is to try to service the bikes ourselves. So at a minimum, we need to change the oil. We need to be able to remove the spark plugs, and it would be good if we occasionally could check the valve clearances. Obviously, changing an oil filter with the oil is good. We should also be able to change the chain and sprockets. But in that case, a chain rivet tool is quite big and bulky. So we basically have to choose when do we call upon a garage when it comes to maintenance. From a day-to-day perspective, the F800GS is quite prone to chewing up the wheel bearings due to the quite utterly appalling aluminium bushes. So a set of wheel bearings and seals is probably a good thing to carry. I don't think you need to carry tools to change it, because you basically need an iron bar, a hammer, and a heat gun of a heat source of some sort. If you have the circlip pliers needed to take it out, then you can pretty much do this at anybody's house. When it comes to unexpected situations, then we need to determine how much effort are we willing to put in before we go get help, either towed or picked up or something. A puncture is pretty much the minimum you should be able to repair on the road. Another thing is just a common fall, where you slip on a slippery patch and the bike goes down, or you're just too tired from wrestling in the mud and the bike goes down, and your mirror goes out of whack and the steering goes out of whack, and you bend a lever, a brake or gear lever. So in those situations, you need to be able to fix those things on the spot, otherwise you can't continue. To start building the toolkit, you can do it the way that you do a certain task on your bike, such as changing a tire, and when you're done, you leave all the tools out and you make a note of what tools it is that you have used. Then you try to replicate those into your toolkit. When you have a toolkit assembled, you've got something like this. Don't put it on the shelf and expect it to be a good thing when you go away. No, the correct thing to do is to work on your bike using that toolkit. In other words, practice, practice, practice. The more you use that toolkit, and only that toolkit, the better you get. If something is missing, you'll add it to it. Another thing to consider is that when you're out traveling, you probably are going to be in a spot that is less than ideal when you're using your toolkit. You're going to be on the side of the road, or you're going to be at a campsite or something like that. So please get good tools. You don't want to be cursing over bad tools in the middle of the night next to the road when it's raining and you're working at the light of your mate's bike. Get good tools. Practice how to use them, and if you can use your tools to fix your bike when you're at home and you're comfortable with it, then it'll be a lot easier and more pleasant if something happens when you're out on the road. So, to sum it up, the size of the toolkit and what you put in it is dependent on what you expect to be doing. Punctures and falls are definitely things that you should be prepared to fix on the spot on the road. Minor maintenance you should also probably be able to do yourself, such as change the oil and repair wheel bearings. When it comes to changing the chain and sprockets, maybe you can change the sprocket yourself and go to a garage and have them change it. It's not a very big deal, and pretty much any garage can do it. You don't need specialist tools to do it. If your bike develops something more serious, like a real mechanical engine problem, then the tools you have on the bike will probably not be sufficient anyway. So at that point, you either need a huge toolkit and a lot of knowledge, or a good workshop. Let me summarize. To start building your toolkit, start servicing your bike and making a note of what tools you have been using. Then acquire those tools and put them in a toolkit, in a tool roll. The next time you do that service, do it with the tool roll toolkit. If you can do it with that toolkit, then your toolkit is adequate for having with you on the road. Don't think that you can just put together a toolkit or just buy any generic toolkit and take it with you on the road and never use it, and then it will get you out of a pickle. Practice with your toolkit and you'll be fine. And finally, don't carry too much stuff. If you have any tips or comments, please let me know, and happy riding. Thanks for watching.